City of Albany School District Board meeting. We invite those of you who are interested in saying the Pledge of Allegiance to join us if you would like to do so. I pledge allegiance The mission of the City School District of Albany is to work in partnership with our diverse community to engage every learner in a robust educational program designed to provide the knowledge and skills necessary for success. Mrs. Adams, do you have a report for us tonight?
I do. Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. The start of the 2018-2019 school year is just 3 weeks away. Thursday, September 6th, is the first day of classes for our students in pre-kindergarten through 9th grade. Albany High School is looking forward once again to the freshman first day to allow our 9th graders a chance to get acclimated to the campus. The first day of school for our sophomores, juniors, and seniors will be Friday, September 7th. As we look ahead to the new year, significant emphasis for us will be the progress monitoring of our SEPs, the School Comprehensive Education Plans, which the board reviewed and approved earlier this summer. We have submitted our SEPs to the State Department of Education, and we are awaiting feedback. Our instructional focus for the 2018-29 school year will be on differentiation, high cognitive demand, student engagement, and culturally responsive teaching and learning. We also will continue our implementation of trauma-informed practices district-wide to address our students' social and emotional needs. I would like to share a couple of back-to-school reminders for our students and families as they prepare for the start of the school year. Tomorrow, Friday, is the last day for our families who have moved since the end of last school year or have children changing schools to submit transportation applications for the first day of school. You can download these required forms at albanyschools.org or give our transportation department a call at 518-475-6170. 518-475-6170. Albany High will be open Wednesday, September 5th, the day before the start of school, for students to come in and pick up their IDs, locker assignments, and schedules. All students can pick up those materials in their academy office between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 3 p.m. on September 5th. Each of our middle schools is holding a back-to-school orientation for students and families as well. Hackett and Myers are holding their orientation programs on the evening of Wednesday, August 29th. O'Neill Middle School is holding its orientation on the evening of Tuesday, September 4th. Please visit each school's page on our district website for more information about upcoming programs and events. We have a school supply list available on all of our school pages as well. We also are making preparation for 2 district events that will help kick off the new school year in style for all of our staff members. Our annual Superintendent's Convocation will be held Tuesday, September 4th at the Empire State Plaza Center. Dr. Chance Lewis from the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, once again will be our guest speaker this year. I am looking forward to welcoming all of our employees back as we prepare to serve our 9,500 students and their families. Convocation will begin with a continental breakfast at 7:30 a.m., courtesy of our partners at First New York Federal Credit Union, and our program will begin at 8:30 a.m. We are also excited about our first upcoming employee recognition celebration at the Palace Theater on the evening of Friday, September 7th, beginning at 6 p.m. This is an opportunity for us to recognize excellence in teaching, excellence in administrative leadership, and excellence among our support staff members. I want to recognize our community partners at CEFCU and First New York Federal Credit Union for their support of this event, because it takes every one of us working together on behalf of each of us to ensure the success of all of our students. We are planning an MWBE Workforce Development Community Update meeting on Wednesday, August 29th. The meeting will be held at the Tony Clement Center for Education from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. This will allow the district and our partners at Turner Construction and Mission Accomplished Transition Services to provide updates for our community on Phase 1 of the Rebuilding Albany High School project, as well as updates on our construction-related MWBE and workforce development outreach and community engagement activities. The event also will provide opportunities for questions and community feedback. We have flyers available here tonight with more information. We hope you will join us for this important conversation. Our Albany High School student athletes went to work this week to get ready for the start of the fall sports season. The regular season officially begins with our girls' tennis match against Shaker at home on Monday, August 27th. The match begins at 4:15 p.m., and all of our home tennis matches are played at Myers Middle School. You may find information on the schedules of all of our sports teams in the athletics section at albanyschools.org. And finally, a reminder that practice for modified football begins next Thursday, August 23rd. Practice for the rest of our modified sports teams begins Monday, August 27th. Good luck to all of our student athletes, and go Falcons. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Adams. There's no one signed up for public comment tonight, so we're going to move directly into routine consent. Can I get a motion to adopt the routine consent agenda? Ms. Roach, seconded by Ms. Smith. All in favor? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Any set-asides? Okay. All in favor? Thank you. That's unanimous. And now we are going to move on to the policy section of our agenda. Dr. Chatour, who is the chair of that committee, is not available tonight, and so Ms. Lang has offered to take his place.
So we have one action item that we did discuss, and that's for the meal and refreshment. And as everyone remembers, this is for the nominal fee for our buildings principals to use a small part of their allocation for family engagement for meals. And we have 4 on the table for discussion. These have been discussed a few times in our policy meetings, so we've gone back and forth and kind of done some revisions. The first one is the limited English proficiency instruction. This was something that we have to do as per regulation, so this is a new policy. And in the policy, it's aligned with CR 154. We added translation services, mission, and vision statement as well. So please look over that if you have any discussion. Also, community relation goals, our commitment to family engagement. School volunteers, 5432, what we did was we looked at the forms, we looked at what our mission was, and also just making sure that we were doing current practice of making sure our volunteers can come into our buildings and how important that is for our students and for our district. And the last one that we put on is the grading system, where as we continue to go through our middle school alignment, we've put in this bill to make sure that our 6th grade grading system is aligned with the middle school and not the elementary grading systems. So those are what's on. And with more?
So I think at this point, I'd like to get a motion to adopt 9170. Do I have a motion to adopt 9170? Ms. Wilson, seconded by Ms. Alexander Mann. All in favor of adopting 9170? That is unanimous. And now, if it's okay with you, Ms. Lang, can we maybe open for discussion one at a time? There's 4 policies here, so I don't know how much discussion we're going to have, so I'm just going to look for ayes. Does anybody have a comment on any of these, or do you want to wait, talk more next time when they'll be up for adoption? Anybody have anything they want to check in on these for? Ms. Roach.
I just wanted to ask if there were any requirements, such as a background check for volunteering.
So Ms. Fiona, whose last name has just jumped out of my head, Thompson, thank you, was with us and validated. That was one of the very rewarding parts about going through this policy, that she came, because she deals with this every day, and unfortunately could not be here tonight, but Mr. Lesko is approaching the table and looks like he's ready to talk to you about volunteer.
The answer is sort of. So there are really two different groups of volunteers who come to our schools for individual types of events, to chaperone events, to come be guest readers, those kinds of things. And they do not go through our district level volunteer process, and there is not a background check required for them. When volunteers do come to us with more of a long-term commitment, we require that goes through our district volunteer coordinator and the volunteer program application. And we do a check of the sexual offender registry at that point. Our district volunteer coordinator does that. And that is the extent of the background checking that we do for volunteers in our schools.
Thanks.
Any other areas for discussion on these four policies? Okay, we're making quick work of the agenda tonight. Mr. Hogan, would you like to talk to us about the tax warrant?
Thank you. Yes, this is our discussion on the 2018-19 tax warrant that goes out in actually the 1st of September, based on the tax levy that was approved in May. So as per the tax vote in May, the voters approved a tax levy for the school year of $115.5 million. It's a 1.33% increase in tax levy. Here's just a little bit of background. In Albany, the tax rates are different for homestead versus non-homestead properties. Homestead represents residential homes, and non-homestead represents the commercial tax base. Currently, the homestead rates are $5.41 per thousand lower than the commercial rates. And because there's a discrepancy or difference between the rates commercial businesses pay versus residents, the district is allowed to make adjustments based on an approved table that actually is based on information from the New York State Real Property Services Department. So one of our goals should be, when we're able to do it, is to bring the two tax rates closer together to maintain and encourage commercial property growth. This will benefit the residential property owners in the long run. If you can maintain and even grow your commercial tax base, they will take a larger percentage of the tax levy each year. So that would be a good goal to work toward, and something we have historically tried to work toward. This next graph kind of illustrates what's been happening in Albany, and we kind of wish it was the inverse of this. But if you look, the pre-recession in 2004, 2005, the homestead tax base was 55% of the total taxable assessed property in the city of Albany. And the commercial tax base, or non-homestead, was about 45%. If you look at where it is currently, 64% of the taxable tax base is the homestead or residences, and only 35, or rounded up 36%, is actually the proportion of assessed taxable property that the commercial entities hold. It would be great if this was the inverse of this, because then the commercial businesses would be supporting 60%, 64% of the taxes. So this further kind of illustrates why it's important to try to bring the tax rates closer together, because if the commercial tax bases are competitive with other communities around us, that's an incentive for businesses to come in, and it's also an incentive for the businesses here not to move away. So you got to think long term when you're looking at these rates. Ideally, we'd like to see the homestead proportion trending downward, not upward. So last year, and actually the year prior to that, we were at the 25% adjustment level. Again, that's provided by the New York State Office of Real Property Taxes. And so if we stayed consistent and stayed on that same position on the table, this is how our 1.33 tax levy would translate. It would translate into the homestead receiving a 1.01% increase, and the non-homestead commercial tax base receiving a 2.04% decrease. We're at 25% of the table. To make the rates equal, you got to get to 100% on the table. So we're still on the low end of adjustments, even though it's good that we are adjusting and moving in the correct direction. The city, by the way, is at 0%, so they have a larger spread than we do even between the commercial tax base and the residential tax base. So again, this table shows us if we stayed at the 25% adjustment level on the table, someone with $150,000 assessed homestead would get a 1.01% tax increase. That's about $33. If your home was a $250,000 assessed value, it would be a $54 increase. And here it's showing the same things for the commercial tax base. A $250,000 non-homestead would receive about a $137 reduction, or minus 2.0%. If you look at the bottom of the screen here, that note, if we stayed at the 25% level on the adjustment table, the difference between homestead and non-homestead rates would decrease from $5.41 per thousand down to $4.65,000, which is an improvement and a move in the right direction. Under this scenario, even though the tax levy increased 1.33%, the homeowners would only see a 1.01% increase. So as we have done in recent years, we look at least one other scenario, and what this next table shows you is what if we moved up one level from the 25% adjustment to a 30% adjustment on the table. What would the results of that be? That would further close the gap between the commercial tax base rates and the residential rates. So what this graph shows us, or table shows us, if we move to a 30% adjustment, the homesteads would receive a 1.79% tax increase, and the non-homestead would receive a 3.06% reduction. The next screen will show us how that further closes the gap. So under this scenario, again, the homestead, if you had a $150,000 house, it would be a $58 increase, which is 1.79%. If you owned a $250,000 house, it would be a $97 increase, which is, again, 1.97%. A commercial property at $250,000, the last line would show a decrease of $206, which is a minus 3.06% reduction in their tax bill. This would actually lower, again, the difference between homestead and non-homestead rates would decline from $5.41 to $4.20. It would move you further along in the long-range goal of trying to bring these two rates closer together and, again, maintain your existing commercial tax base and make it more attractive for outside businesses to come in. And again, you got to think long-term. That will benefit all the homeowners in the long term. So if we moved forward with the 30% adjustment, here is, and that is what's recommended for the tax rates. Here is basically what this would look for in 18-19, and then it would be a look back at the prior 3 years, what occurred then. If you go right to the last line, the 4-year average school tax levy increase is just a little over 0.5% on average for the last 4 years. The homestead tax rate on average would be about a 1% increase for each year over the last 4 years. And the non-homestead would be about a 1.71 average reduction per year over the last 4 years. So this actually, I was kind of pleased the way this did roll out. The most current year, 18-19, would be 1.79%. But if you look at recent history, there have been very nominal tax increases on average for the last 4 years. So with that, I will turn it back to the president for any questions, comments, or ideas.
Board colleagues, do we have any questions, comments, or ideas?
I just wanted to say, I think it makes sense to continue toward equalization, both because it's sound tax policy and because it's going to benefit the city overall. And I think it's important that we work with the city just to try to further whatever we can do to increase economic competitiveness.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Anyone else have a comment or a question? Ms. Wilson?
I don't have a question. I just want to affirm Board Member Roach's statements. I have the same mindset also.
Anyone else?
Just in speaking to the city, they want to move in the same direction we're moving as well.
Wonderful. So thank you to Board Member Roach and Ms. Wilson for your fine comments on this point. I think this whole entire school board stands behind the City of Albany and looking to improve our commercial tax base, both for the benefit of the taxpayers, but also for the benefit of the potential employees who live in the City of Albany and need additional commercial places in which to work. So we need to have a motion to adopt the tax warrant as described by Mr. Hogan. Ms. Wilson, seconded by Ms. Roach. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr. Hogan.
Thank you.
And now I need to check my agenda. Next, Ms. Adams, I believe you're going to speak to us on the educational design.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. Tonight is just the first of an overview of what we're looking at for the 2018-2019 school year. And this is a preview of our educational design. In preparation for our discussion, and if you have questions this evening, I'm providing you with this overview so that you can start to see the systemic realignment of the City School District of Albany. As you know, we will be gathering input with regard to the 2018-2019 priorities. And so as we move forward, I'd just like to take the opportunity to set the expectation for the operations and all of the operational divisions that we have within our school district. And so if you remember, of course, we did our vision, mission, and goals statement at last year's convocation, and then we engaged our community and all of our teachers and support staff and the board members and cabinet in looking at what that vision, mission, and goals might be. And at the end of the day, we settled in on 5 goals that were extremely important. Increasing student achievement, delivery of quality instruction, looking at building our leadership capacity and accountability, empowering our families, and then partnering with our diverse community. When we look at how this helps us move forward, the purpose and objective of our educational design helps us to establish the way in which we do business so that it is not a one and done. It is something that we embed into our practices. It is purposeful, it is strategic, and it becomes the cyclical way that we foster a culture of continuous improvement. Just as we want our students to always aim to be better and to perform better, we as a district want to model that for them. So looking at a multi-year process of how we plan and prioritize what we're focusing on is extremely important so that we are purposeful and strategic in the things that we determine are important. So within our educational design, I want to credit Karen Bechtel with her leadership in developing a committee which looked at our instructional framework. And so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that instructional framework, because at the core of what we do in education, it really does boil down to the education of our students and what happens directly in the classroom. And so what you're going to start to hear more purposeful, more strategic, is that language of everything connecting to what happens in the classroom. Because for us in an educational institution, while there are other things that we may not be able to control, it is absolutely within our control to look at the delivery of quality instruction. And so under the leadership of Ms. Bechtel, this committee worked together to establish what are those consistencies that we can see from pre-K through 12th grade in a classroom. And while the content may be different, there are virtually 9 components of our instructional framework, which I'll share with you on the next screen, that help us to look at what constitutes quality delivery of instruction. And then the organizational support around those things. All of our divisions and departments impact instruction. It's just at some point, and sometimes, it's unclear how some roles may impact instruction. And so some of the things that you're going to see throughout this year will be making it clear, no matter what your role is, as a custodian, what is your role to that, and how do you impact instruction? As an administrator, as a teacher, as a teaching assistant, as a hall monitor, all of the roles that we have in this district impact student achievement, and becoming crystal clear in what that role is and how it does that, which leads us to the realignment of roles and responsibilities. And over this past year, we've had an opportunity as cabinet to review the roles and responsibilities of ourselves as well as our direct reports in order to clarify expectations and build our own organizational capacity. And this is key as we move forward to enhance the support of our instructional program. So the diagram that you see really sets the stage for where we are headed. At the center, at our core, is our instructional framework. And you will see the 9 components that we were able to work through with our teachers and through the committee to establish what those consistencies would be. And then looking at the support of each of our divisions now versus departments, our divisions, which are supervised by cabinet members, what each division's role is to support that instructional framework. And so as we move forward over the next month or so, we will break this down and share it with the board, specifically what each division is responsible for, how those pieces have changed, the clarity of those roles and responsibilities, and then moving forward to the impact on the instructional framework. These are our cabinet members. Business and Finance, Bill Hogan. The Division of Secondary Instruction, Lori McKenna. The Division of Elementary Instruction, Dr. Cecily Wilson-Turner. Our Assessment, Accountability, and Technology Innovation Division, Kent Baker. Curriculum and Instruction Division, Karen Bechtel. The Human Resources Division, Matthew Petrin. Grants and Program Development Division, Eileen Leffler, and Communications and Operations Division, Ron Lesko. So within these division of responsibilities, there have been some changes, and I will verbally share those with you, and as we move forward, it will become much clearer as we talk about them individually. Within the Business and Finance Division, we're looking at the accounting, budget, payroll, facilities management, food service management. Communications and Operations Division is now responsible for transportation. Of course, community/business partnerships and outreach expansion, and government relations expansion. Human Resources Division, we've developed standard operating procedures, and there is a manual that will be coming forward for internal communications and operations among our building level principals, as well as within our HR division, making sure that procedures are consistent so that when someone calls and gets a response from one person, it would be consistent no matter the person that you were talking to in that particular division. Recruiting focus and then workforce diversity is also an emphasis within our Human Resources Division. And within the Secondary Instructional Division, the realignment of pupil personnel services to student support services, which now includes E&L, special education, student safety, and security. And so this is the overview of where we are, and it sets the stage for the work that we have to do in developing our priorities for the 2018-2019 school year. So at this time, I will entertain questions.
Board colleagues, does anyone have any questions or comments or thoughts to share with Ms. Adams? Ms. Smith?
Just a comment. I just think this is a beautiful thing. You know, having in my own work been a part of developing strategic plans and things like that, which seem to never, they're just like this, and you don't know where you're supposed to be often. You just sort of hone in on one little thing and hope that, you know, that's the right thing. It seems to me that this framework, as you stated, allows everyone to know where we need to be and how we're going to get there. And so I just really like that, and it just reiterates that we're all in this. No matter what your role or responsibilities are, you have an obligation, and everything is leading to the successful achievement for every student. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Lang?
I just want to say after the first year, this is exactly, I think, the direction we want to go into, and also just dive into the framework that you've put together, working collaboratively with where as a board, the vision, and where the district, and where your vision, and where all of our visions come together. I look forward to implementing this for the next year. So it's been a great first year. Thank you.
Anyone else? So I'm just going to add my own comment that I very much appreciate the hard work that went into developing this and getting buy-in throughout the system for it, and also to reiterate two words you put together that mean a lot to me, which is systemic alignment. That is what we hope. We are not satisfied with success in pockets. That's not good enough. Every child in Albany deserves success. And so we believe that this vision is going to lead to systemic change as opposed to pockets of change throughout. And its emphasis on the circle of respect among all staff members and understanding the value of every staff member, no matter what their role, is what we need, because the folks who are respected respect the children, and that is the way we want to go. So we very, very much appreciate your hard work on this. Anyone else final comments? Okay, thank you very much. And then we are on to the discussion of the professional development plan. Ms. Bechtel.
And while Ms. Bechtel is coming forward, I just want to say thank you very much to Cabinet for all the support that we have and in working together, because it could not be done without the leadership of Cabinet. So thank you all very much.
Ready, Jen? Good evening, Board of Education. I have here with me tonight two very special people in our district. To my left is Lawrence Moultrie, who is assistant principal at Hackett Middle School. He also is the co-chair to the District Professional Development Committee. I'm very grateful that he came on board this year to be that co-chair with me. So, Lawrence, welcome. And secondly, Jen Justice is here. Jen is the mentor coordinator and professional development support person. She's kind of like my right-hand person for all things PD, including our mentoring program. Jen is a teacher on special assignment, it's a TOSA role, and she has been doing such a wonderful, awesome job over the past couple of years that she's been working in my office. I'm very grateful that she's there with me. So we're going to talk a little bit about the professional development plan. I'm going to turn it over to these very smart people to tell you about it.
Good evening. Throughout the course of the school year, what we did was we reviewed as a committee surveys. Yep, sorry. Throughout this course of the school year, what we did was reviewed surveys that had been distributed to the faculty and staff. One of the things as a committee that we did was we reviewed the surveys, we reviewed the DTSDE report, the DSIP report, to make sure that we were aligning all our goals together so that we can review the 2016 and 2000 through the 2018 professional development plan. During this time, we came up with 3 goals, and I'm going to speak about the first goal right now. One of the things we developed was new standards and implementations, and one of the things we wanted to highlight was to make sure that we were focusing or making sure that we were being explicitly focusing on our ELL students and our students with disabilities.
Actually, in Goal 1, at one point we had data-driven instruction, and we moved that to Goal 2. And so this, under curriculum and instruction, we focus on our literacy initiative, K-12. We also looking at classroom teachers and their instructional practices. And as I said, we moved the data-driven instruction to this goal because it seemed to make more sense because that's where instruction was. Goal 3 is a focus. I'm sorry. Goal 3, we focused on the social-emotional development of our students, looking at PBIS. We have PBIS in K-12 focused. We're looking at the high school now with Falcon Pride, which is a version of PBIS rolled out to the high school students. And a committee was formed, and they're planning on rolling that out. And we also looked at the TCIS, Therapeutic Crisis Intervention for Students, and the TIC, which is, I can't come up with it, Karen. Thank you, Trauma-Informed Care. So many initials. We also, in response to the AG's report, we have the Code of Conduct, which was, I think Ron uploaded it last week, and people had a chance to take a look at that. And then we have 2 more cohorts of culturally responsive education for all staff.
Basically, the goals from 2016-2018 plan stayed the same. What became different is we shifted a few things. We did the explicit thing with the ELL students and the SPED students. Those were 2 primary changes. And then, of course, the action plan underneath with the specific steps changes because we're in a new time period. Of course, the one thing that we really want to do with the professional development plan is make sure that it's aligned to the DSIP. Which makes it nice that I'm there because I'm so intimately involved with that part. So our goal 1 is really connected to the standards, the modification of the standards is what is in the DSIP. Goal 2 around the implementation of the data protocol, which is in our Tenet 1 in the DSIP. Our Tenet 3, the modification of standards-based curriculum. Tenet 3, the curriculum, and then in our Goal 2, we spend a lot of time talking about that as well. And then Tenet 4, professional development for best practices. Our superintendent talked tonight about the instructional framework that appears in the professional development plan too, to roll out. It's all things that teachers do, but this is a way to sort of codify it. And then Goal 3, which is really aligned to Tenet 5, the social emotional piece. And I'm going to send this back down to Jen because she is an expert on CTLE.
CTLE is probably the questions I get the most about. In July 2016, State Ed changed the regulations, so teachers now have to have 100 hours of CTLE if they are professionally certified. So old people like me don't have to do that, but the newer teachers do. and they have to report this to state ed. And it used to be a district practice where they uploaded the hours to the state, and it was really quite complex and complicated and time-consuming. And so now what happens is the teacher has to register on Teach every 5 years, and they also have to attest that they've done their 100 hours of professional development, and that's separate from what their contract obligations are. So this has become, the Teach platform is pretty complicated, and registering, if you've ever been on DMV, there's an umbrella, and it's kind of crazy because if you have the wrong password, you think you're in DMV and you're in Teach, and teachers have a lot of issues with it. It comes up quite frequently. And any providers from outside the district that are CTLE certified, they have to pay a $600 fee to the state in order to do that. So we have several. And that's included in our PD plan, too.
So the next steps for our PD plan is to distribute the plan to principals, teachers, leaders, and staff, and have it posted on the website. We're going to regularly progress monitor the professional development goals. We're going to conduct annual PD surveys, monitor the building and district plan development process, and then submit a 2017-2018 PD report for the Board of Education, and update the 2016 professional development plan.
Oh, that's an error.
Oops, should be
That's 2018.
2018.
Should be 2018, my apologies. And finally, just any questions on our new professional development plan to encompass the years 2018-19 and 2019-20?
So board colleagues, I have a feeling we're going to have a few more questions on this than we had on some of the other topics. I'm going to ask you to just each think about what's your most important question and ask that first. And we'll try and go ask one question, and then if you get another chance, that's great too. So who would like to go first? Ms. Lang, would you like to go first?
Connections to the DSIP. I was wondering where Tenet 2 and Tenet 6 fell in. I don't see them on the connections to the DSIP.
Tenet 2 is around our leaders and training our leaders. And while we do have a section in the PD plan that speaks to what the leaders PD is, we do not have an explicit goal in the district PD plan. The district PD plan is a requirement from the state to have for, it's just a regulation. And while we have a PD plan for our leaders, it isn't explicitly represented inside the professional development plan. It could be, but it isn't.
Ms. Wilson, would you like to go next? Oh, Ms. Roach. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Adams has something to share.
Yes, I wanted to go ahead and address the leadership professional development. It's not a part of this document, but it will be presented to the board at a later date, because we are, as we have talked about before, we're looking at building that capacity of our leaders. And so one of the things that we are looking at is how do we build in that professional development at our monthly meetings with our principals. What's the content of that as we look at equity, as we look at the procedures that they have to follow at their schools that are directly related to the tasks of the job, but also building on that leadership capacity, taking them a little bit out of the weeds and into that true leadership view that broadens their perspective and strengthens their philosophy about where they stand as leaders. And so that training will be going on throughout the year, but it will be presented to the board at a later date.
And Ms. Lang, I did not address your second question about Tenet 6, so if I could just jump in. So Tenet 6 around our family engagement can really be found in the SEPs. They are very much building driven, building generated. The district supports, of course, in terms of the parent university and other initiatives that we have going, but that that piece is actually reflected in the SEP PD plans of individual buildings.
Ms. Roach.
Thank you. I wanted to say I really liked the specificity of this plan, and I really liked that it wasn't just talking about training teachers, but training teachers and coaches and administrators and training the coaches to deliver this type of PD training. I really like that we're trying to turnkey this type of thing and focusing on not only building leaders and administrators, but also support staff and other staff within the schools to make sure everyone's got some baseline training. The question I had was, I noticed when I was looking at some of the objectives in the third objective, 3.1b about PBIS mentions training for Albany High School, and then 3.5 also mentions specific training for Albany High School in culturally significant education. And I wondered, is PBIS simply in a later state of implementation at the high school than at the elementary and middle school buildings? Why the specific call out of the high school for that?
Yes, it certainly has been. I mean, PBIS has been in play in the district, I believe, for as long as I've been here, particularly, began at elementary, moved into middle level, and now we have to look at it differently at the high school level. It has to have a different appearance, and which is why we have the, Falcon Pride. But they do want to be more targeted and strategic about how they're doing that social emotional piece at the high school and the professional development necessary to make that happen.
And can you speak more to the training in diverse student groups that's going on at the high school? That's the 3.1b, that's 3.5.
So this is the CRE training is the first item, and then the second one is for the Albany High leadership staff to undergo it themselves. There's been so much transition there that we wanted to make sure that the administrators at Albany High, who really represent a good sized cohort, that they can have this training so that they too are aware of the culturally responsive practices that we're expecting from everyone.
That makes sense. So it's some of the other district leaders have already had this training,
Yes.
but because of the turnover at the high school, we want to make sure that everyone in that cohort has it.
And we've been trying to be strategic about when it occurs. I think we had a hope that we would be able to get it done, sort of at that odd, like sort of maybe the end of the Regents' time, and we weren't able to do it because we can't pull that cohort all at once. But Ms. Comerford is committed to having her staff trained in this, and we will find a space somewhere between now and next year to have that cohort come together to do the training.
Excellent. Thank you.
Ms. Wilson?
So overall, I love the presentation, thank you, and of course the comprehensive plan and the component about mentoring was outstanding. My question was around the PBIS also, and I saw the multi-level, multifaceted approach when it came to the trauma-informed and the emphasis on positivity and school climate. I just wanted to point to the fact that some students may not manifest in a way that looks like crisis or trauma. So, for example, there was an article I read, for example, Quiet Black Girls and the Way We Fail Them, and how there's a concept that there's some students they're fine, we don't have to pay attention to them. So I was wondering if they too could be our adverse childhood experience, adverse childhood environment students, but they may not be raising that red flag or anything. So I was wondering if there was any aspects of the training that speak specifically to that.
Yes, in the trauma-informed care modules, which I've only had one of the days of training so far, so I haven't gone through all of it. I will be in 2 days next week, addresses some of those pieces as well.
Ms. Smith, Ms. Hazelmand, you ready?
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to know, and I'm looking at slide number 5 of the Safe, Respectable Community. There's PBIS and TCIS. How is that communicated to our parents? And perhaps what we learn from a student, how would that be communicated to our parents or our knowledge around trauma?
Yeah, that's 5. No, that's one.
It's the one before that.
So that's a good question. The social emotional piece is not really in my wheelhouse, but I do know that at the building level, the principals are committed to making sure that their parents know about how PBIS works and how the system works, so that they know when their children come home and they're reporting out on some of the points or however things are working. I think we've had conversations at that table about how that works. How they specifically communicate to parents around that, I think that I would need to have Cecily Wilson-Turner maybe speak a little bit more. Maybe we can put that in the update about how they're not giving the information to the parents from the building level about their PBIS efforts. We can do that.
Can I ask one more question? It's on the same slide. In terms of a therapeutic crisis intervention, is that new for the district, or that's been in existence? Okay, that's
Yes.
all. Thanks.
Ms. Smith, I don't think you've had a chance to ask a question yet. Okay, then I'll ask a question. I'm trying to get a sense of where we are in getting our staff through the TAC-D cohorts. Like, roughly what percentage of our staff is our target? Like, how many people do we think we want to get through ultimately? How many have we successfully gotten through now? That kind of thing. So however it's easiest for you to answer that question, and even if it needs to come in SBU, but that's what I'm trying to understand.
Yes, with these 2 new cohorts, we will be at around 300 staff trained. But I don't know whether the percentage of active staff might be different, because sometimes the turnover has an impact on that. Really we have to really think about the next steps with our CRE training. It's really important that we get a little bit of a critical mass at each of the buildings, and that the buildings then take on, if they have a critical mass of folks that have been through the training and or are interested and committed and devoted to this way of thinking about our children and our instruction, then they then take that and pull that into their own building plans to enact in their buildings and to follow through with the walkthroughs and whatever. So it's really more, I think, about getting to those next steps. So the Professional Development Committee has, I think, done a very nice job of ensuring that we set these cohorts up. We have the trainers come in. We're taking attendance. We're making sure folks are there. We're working on the subs. We have the materials. We facilitate all of those things. But there is a separate group. It's a CRE committee that has met probably less frequently than it should have over the course of this year, to determine how we're going to leverage the work that we've done so far into next steps at the building level.
So, Mrs. Adams, I wonder if we could think about how we could get a broader presentation on that, because I think it was our expectation as a board that we were moving in the direction of getting ultimately all of our staff through TAC-D, and I get the sense that we're going a little slowly, right? Because 2 cohorts is what, about 80 people?
About 70.
About 70 people. So that's 3. If we do 70 a year with the level of staff turnover we have, I feel like we're a little bit hamster on the wheel there. So I'm wondering if we can talk more in terms of professional development about what our ultimate goal is, how we think we're going to get to where we're trying to go. Yes, Ms. Smith.
I know that it might be too soon to ask about some kind of data as a result of having these 2 cohorts, but I'm trying to get a sense on what we are expecting to see in the classroom. Yeah, how do we measure success? What are we expected to see?
The training. The training really focuses on adult mind shift and seeing things in a way that perhaps a person hasn't seen it before. It's about sharing experiences. It's about understanding the constructs of power, and it's about understanding, privilege and how you can be blind to that and growing your own awareness around the privilege that you might walk around with that impacts your everyday actions and your everyday instruction. So when we talk about how we're going to see that transfer from shifting people's self-awareness, and people are really they're on this continuum. They go from here to 0 to awareness to 100 to awareness, and you're really trying to move folks. You're trying to move folks on this continuum because nobody goes from 0 to 100. Because it's a process. This is about keeping your mind open to the learning, and then not walking away from the 5 days of training and not doing anything about it. And this is one of the things that TAC-D, Dr. Hernandez, wants us, is very interested in having us leverage, identify what we're going to leverage next. Like what are our action steps as we move forward? And I think we've been, I'm going to be honest, we've been a little bit stalled in ensuring that people walk away from this training with a clear expectation about what they do next and who is going to follow up, and how are we going to hold ourselves accountable to the training that we've received. So there is definitely work that needs to be done around culturally responsive, because you can't just provide training and say, okay, we did it, we're done, because this is about it's almost like about a way of, it's a way of thinking and internal growth so that you can serve the children better. And so I don't know if that's the best answer for you, but that's the best.
Mrs. Adams?
Yeah.
So taking that to the next step, so when you look at internally what the training has been and where our teachers are, we have not trained the tipping point, if you will. We've not done that amount of training, and so our next steps would be to see how we can facilitate that training that gets us to that tipping point. But then the work that extends that will be utilizing the information from TAC-D and working with NYC with regard to what are the look-fors in a classroom. And so one of the pieces that we are also working on through this year, through this first half of the year, is what those look-fors would be, and then how can we incorporate that into our walkthrough tool so that it becomes something concrete that is observable, and then administrators will have the tools to be able to have those conversations with teachers about, I noticed this in the classroom, talk to me about this, how does this look in terms of culturally responsive, and then start to take what we know intellectually people have been trained with, and how does that manifest itself in the classroom. So that is going to be a process throughout this year, but we are still doing the work with administrators with regard to getting that training done in their buildings so that we have a common understanding of what are the look-fors for culturally responsive teaching. When you walk into a classroom, are you looking at multicultural materials? What type of language is being used? Are we noticing the types of students who are participating in the discussion? But the pressure point becomes, how do we then list that in something that is quantifiable versus the quantitative data that we get? And so that transition to taking a very qualitative type of experience and activity and translating that to a quantitative piece is going to be where the rubber meets the road, so that we can clearly, distinctly see these are the look-fors that say what we are seeing in this classroom is culturally responsive. And so that is a heavy lift. That is an extremely heavy lift. We're not afraid of it, but we know that that is going to be the next step to this heavy lift.
So, and I do appreciate that, and I totally get it, because it's really, it's a personal kind of, growth thing. But I guess what I'm trying to figure out, what was this cohort, what did they leave with? Were they expected to themselves, even if it's internal, what were they expected to sort of think about and, you know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. Yeah, maybe, yeah.
At each of the sessions, folks are given some little homework and asked to bring that back to the next session to debrief and speak about it. I will say that we did include in our instructional framework the culturally responsive education along with sort of a preliminary rubric as we think about the walkthroughs. And there are many buildings, several buildings that have made CRE a part of their walkthrough process. So they are looking at it in their classrooms and trying to do their best to measure it and address it and give folks feedback about what it is that they're seeing. Because it isn't even just about the multicultural materials, although that's important, but it's also, I think, as the superintendent was alluding to, how many times did the teacher call on the African American children versus the white children, or boys versus girls. I mean, there's studies that happen according to that, and so I think being attentive to that and being conscious about that, it helps the administrators use that as a part of their walkthrough work.
Just to close on it, this is probably some of the hardest work that any of us could do. It's also some of the most important work that we have to do. Yes. And so there's a lot of, obviously, frustration, and given the context of the world in which we live, it makes it even all the more important. So I don't mean to, I'm not hounding you or pressuring you, I'm just wanting to understand and trying to figure out if we can, in some way, get there a little faster. Thank you.
Does anyone have a second question they'd like to ask? Ms. Wilson?
I also want to signal boost the fact that the emphasis on our English learners and, of course, our students with disability, I think that's a huge magnitude in terms of things of a focus. You also spoke to my second question already, too, about the application. You said it, Ms. Bechtel, which my question was going to be around the fact that cultural responsiveness should not just be a buzzword in this corporate, facetious way. And I think you spoke to that we have immigrant students to attend to, students of color, students from diverse economic backgrounds, and we have to give them the same level of engagement and academic rigor that all students receive, and also take into effect that different families, different backgrounds, and different norms, different attitudes, and things of that. So I appreciate that, because you actually empowered me with that information that we're on the right track in that sense. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a huge focus for the district. That's why I'm glad we started at this stage. And I was also curious if we could know the book that you'll be reading. If it's picked out already, it may not be.
For the sessions, yeah. We get big old manuals with a multitude of articles and excerpts that is carefully chosen by NYU. Okay.
I think, did you mean the book study groups?
That's what I was referring to, but are you guys? Oh, sorry, my mic's off. I thought it was along the lines of like almost like a book club everybody was reading, but I don't know if I misread that.
We've had that, and speaking of next steps, we did have a few people that had gone through the training, and they were so excited and empowered. They said, we want to run a book study, and they did. I think they chose, I don't know whether it was Growing Up White. Waking Up White, thank you. They chose, I believe they chose that one. That was with Nancy.
New Scotland and Giffen did that together, if I recall correctly.
Yep. And we also have teachers, a Teachers of Color PLC in the district. We invite everyone, of course, because we're being inclusive, but we are talking about those things because we're also focused on our teaching staff and trying to make sure that they have the support that they need in order to be successful in this field. So, yeah, there's a variety of things going on.
Anyone else have a second question that they want to ask? Ms. Lang?
I just wanted to kind of go off what Tabitha said about the ENL and the students with disabilities. I didn't see in here, though, about IEPs. Is there a need for more professional development reading IEPs or 504 or compliance? that kind of
So
detail.
in the 2016-2018 plan, we had quite a bit around around writing IEPs and writing SMART goals and learning about that work. And Debbie and her staff, Debbie Sharp, our Director of Special Education, really worked very hard to make sure that the special education teachers had that training over the past 2 years. So we're good for now.
And the teachers that are reading the IEPs or the compliance on those type of levels, is that a need as well for teachers to follow or understand IEPs or,
I think that's just our business, like that's part of the work. I think the PD, we haven't captured everything in the PD plan because what's a part of the regular work, making sure that folks can get in and dive into the IEPs and understand them, that's a normal state of the business. We're trying with the PD plan to talk about what is something that we're going to focus on, accomplish, and measure and report out on, and then move on to something else if needs be. Yes, and new teacher, I'm sorry, Jen has been instrumental in running our new teacher orientation, which will take place the week after next. We do 5 full days with our new teaching staff. And they have a variety. I don't know if you want to hear about the workshops, but
If we can keep it relatively short, that would be terrific.
We do have, Megan Warren comes in to go over Medicaid billing, and we also have teachers that sit with the new teachers to go over writing IEPs, and we have school tool training, we have everything. And so we do cover the special ed piece pretty explicitly with social workers, behavior specialists, psychologists, and new special ed teachers so that they have that coming in, what the Albany protocols are.
Thank you. Ms. Alexander Mann or Ms. Roach, you haven't asked a second question. Did you have another question?
No, you guys are doing the work for me, asking the things that I was secretly curious about.
So I have another question. Are the building subs included in this PD? The PD that's for teachers, as you described it in the plan, if you're a building sub, do you get this same training?
the permanent
Permanent
building
sub.
subs, they often do. I mean, I think things that are embedded in the day, no, but the things that take place after school or during the teacher PD hours or things that we offer, during the summer, those folks are full-time employees and often are looking for those PD hours in order to meet their certification needs. So yes, they are welcome. They are here. They can come, but the embedded PD building sub would be used to be the
Cover
sub
this
for
sub.
the teacher, yes.
And I assume our short-term subs, so non-building subs who call in and take a day here and there, are not included in this professional development.
Not explicitly, but every once in a while I'll get a call from somebody asking if they can access something. We're open to that.
Okay, and I guess I'm looking for some context for the questions I already asked, which is, I know that let me ask it as a question. Roughly what percentage of our classes are covered every day by subs? Ish, 10%? Is it roughly 10%? I feel like it's 10%, but I might be making that up. No.
I have no idea.
So I guess I'd like to understand that context, because if in fact I'm right and it's 10%, that's kind of a lot. And so I'd like to think that our subs are getting as much training as we can possibly give them, because they're 1 out of every 10 days-ish covering our kids.
And they are here for the PD. If they are permanent subs, then they're here for the PD days. And so they participate in any of that training that's taking place as well.
So I guess I'd like that to understand that better. Do you understand the question I'm asking?
I do. So the training of our substitutes, we have the compliance training that all substitutes participate in. What you're getting at is a little bit deeper. We can explore how to do that, but a day-to-day sub to go through, and I'm going to pick TAC D for the CRE, we would not be able to preserve the integrity of that training for a day-to-day sub. Could we embed some CRE training in our overall compliance training for substitutes in general? Yes, there could be a component of that. But when we're talking about the discrete implementation of specific instructional methodologies, it is very hard to incorporate a day-to-day sub in that because there's no continuity of that training. However, the building level subs, yes, those that are permanent subs, because aside from the embedded training during the day when they're covering a class, that is difficult. But when we have the after-school training or when we have professional development days, as Karen stated, those particular trainings, yes, they can easily be incorporated into that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I guess I'm looking to be really thoughtful about that. You know, how much of our working staff every day is subs? And how are we maximizing the utility of those people in teaching our children? That's my question, right? Because we know there's some subs who are day-by-day subs, but are day-by-day subs for years, right? We have people who've been subs in this district for 5 years, and they might teach, 20 days a year for 5 years. That's a lot of kids that are being approached by that teacher, and I'm just curious to know, can we do more for our kids by leveraging our subs better? Ms. Roach.
I just wanted to echo what Ann said and really reiterate how critical it is, because students have subs for a large percentage of their career, and especially, while I understand that you're not going to send a substitute that's in the district for 1 day here and there to a 5-day dedicated training in culturally responsive education, especially with some of these socio-emotional aspects like the crisis intervention and trauma. Trauma is something, a crisis is just as likely to occur in a substitute's classroom as it is in a permanent teacher's classroom. So while I understand that they may not need the whole picture of instructional design and curriculum and differentiated instruction, we really do need to get them some more trauma and socio-emotional thing. It also may be a good way to get, my understanding is, anecdotally, some of the schools, and especially TCCE, there's trouble getting substitutes in the building when there are absences. And maybe if we could get that type of training, we would have an easier, maybe if we could give substitutes that type of dedicated training, we would have an easier time getting substitutes into the positions where they're needed.
Does anyone else have a comment or a question? So I want to echo again the really excellent work that went into this plan and how much we appreciate the thoughtfulness in it, and our questions that lead to new thoughts are just questions leading to new thoughts. They're not meant to be critiques of the work. We very much appreciate the work that you do. Thank you very much. So Ms. Bechtel, I think you get to change dance partners now, is that right?
It is my very great pleasure to introduce you to 2 new administrators in our district who have not been here in front of the board yet. To my far left is Mrs. Sarah McGraw, who many of you will recognize because she has been in the district a long 26 years and has been a teacher leader, has been doing all sorts of things. Most recently, was working in a kindergarten classroom at Giffen and had a fabulous time there with the babies, and now has become an administrator, our elementary STEM supervisor, and she is just bringing her energy and enthusiasm to that job that she brought to all her years of teaching. To my immediate left is Mr. Frank Del Señor, who joined the district in November of last year. And has also been doing just such a wonderful job. Frank comes to us, has spent a long time in Schenectady, 13 years in Schenectady as a high school math teacher in the chair there, and took on this administrative role here in Albany and has been doing nothing but wonderful work as he's been learning the ropes of Albany, which we're a complex place, so I think he's managed incredibly well. So I'm going to turn this over to them because this is their presentation about the review of the math curriculum.
Pull the microphone closer, please.
Sure. The purpose of the presentation tonight is to summarize for you the review of our math curriculum. We went through the established process that hits these 5 criteria.
Hello. So we're going to just go back and forth, Frank and I here. On the elementary level, the process that was utilized, because we do not have a written grade level district curriculum maps in place at the elementary level at this point, we utilize different data sources to harvest the information to be able to properly review the rubric. We had a team of seasoned K-5 math instructors as well as myself. We began in February. We met 10 times and looked at different guidance documents, resource tools, assessments that were being used at each grade level. And then at the end of that, we reviewed the rubric and we made some selections and we found some findings and some recommendations that we'll review.
And at the secondary level, most of this work happened over 2 days. One in January was part of a rigorous curriculum design training that was held with teachers, the building curriculum team leaders, the middle school math coach, my core team, and we began to review the maps for all of the middle school and high school math courses. And after beginning that process with that core team on May 15th, as part of the District Professional Development Day, we included all stakeholders at both the middle school and high school level. So every teacher was involved in this process of reviewing the curriculum maps and providing their input. Later this summer, we came back together and distilled those findings and recommendations that we'll be sharing with you this evening. One of the big things coming up in math instruction and ELA instruction, for that matter, is another shift in standards. So perhaps you've heard about the next generation learning standards that'll be coming over the next couple years. One thing I want to just make clear to the board is this shift in standards is not what we felt when we moved to Common Core. It is not a monumental shift. This is really more refining and clarifying some, how do I want to put that, ambiguity in some of the standards for Common Core, as well as some shifting of grade levels for specific standards.
So part of this change is essentially 3 phases. We have the Common Core. We're going to move to the next gen standards from essentially, as you see up on the slide, from now until the spring, we're going to be looking at raising awareness. This is going to occur for the K-5 inside of the embedded PDs that we already have scheduled. For the secondary level, it'll occur at district PD days and their team meetings and department meetings. So raising awareness that some changes are coming. But again, as Frank stated, they're refinements. There's no big seismic shift that's going to occur in any grade level or in any area. Then we move essentially from spring all the way for another whole year of building capacity. This is where we're going to have to realign some of our resource tools, acquire some new things to support. Depending on the grade level, a couple of the standards have shifted. Say, for example, there's some new things in 3rd grade that weren't in 3rd grade. So we're going to have to ensure that our resource tools have the materials needed for the teachers to teach that shift. Then we're looking at the full implementation starting in September 2020. And then that full implementation, again, it will just be a smooth transition. We're not expecting any issues in regard to this new gen implementation. Spring of 2021 is when the state assessments for 3 through 8 will be modified and we'll have the new gen standards in those assessments. There has been no defined date for the high school Regents exams to shift yet into the new gen. Just went to a training at BOCES 2 weeks ago, and that's still in line. So as soon as they define it, when the Regents exams will come online with the new gen standards, then we'll know. But right now, only 3 through 8 is going into effect at 2021. Oh, I'm keeping the mic, and we're moving to the elementary math. Enjoy those incredibly cute little kindergartners from Giffen as they're up there. We're going to take a look a little bit about the findings. So essentially, I'm going to break it up with some basic findings and then the recommendations from those findings. So again, the district is implementing a comprehensive K-5 math program, but there is no platform outside the scope and sequence of the primary resource that captures all the aspects of the curriculum. Internal assessments and additional formative assessments are in place. Many times additional formative assessments are being developed through data teaming at individual building sites with the support of the data coach and the math coaches, but there's no systematic way to share those assessments in all 12 buildings. They are being shared through the math coaches in an informal manner, but there's no platform. There's evidence of research-based teaching strategies, differentiated instructional planning, again, happening pockets all over the place, but no comprehensive resource document that supports that. Another finding, moving a little fast on my nervousness. There are common grade level assessments. There's pre-assessments, checkpoints, and post-assessments, and the initial findings were too lengthy and they contained structural errors. There was full implementation of Envision, which is our primary resource tool that we're using at the K-5 level. It's occurring, but that resource tool is not aligned currently with the next gen standards. Do I expect that it will be in their future editions? Yes, I do, but at this moment it is not. Efforts to provide professional development in different aspects of the curriculum pieces, the new math resources, best practice strategies, formative assessments, it's ongoing, but it occurs before and after school, and therefore all staff is not present. Context for Learning, which is a supplemental resource that we are utilizing in the district. We purchased it back in 15-16, but there has never been systematic professional development. Pockets were getting trained in the FOSNO resource, especially the schools that were involved in studios. They were using the FOSNO, so some teachers have a depth and breadth of understanding and some do not. There's evidence that the primary resource it's very appropriate for certain pieces. There are, inside of the Envision resource, there are strategies for students with disabilities, strategies for English language learners, but there's not enough. And we feel that looking at our classrooms, we want to make sure that we have additional resources for them. There are intervention kits in the Envision resource, and again, not sufficient for all classrooms. Final finding is that our online math resources, they vary across the district. Most of the programs are aligned to Common Core, so we're talking about the computerized programs that they're using, as supplemental during RTI and other things. They're aligned to Common Core, but they're not necessarily aligned to our district resources, to Envisions, to the Context of Learning, or to NWEA. Student data tracking is not occurring with these online programs systematically. So we're looking at that. So the recommendations. You are right there? Okay. Oh, shoot. Sorry. Laptop, mouse issues. Okay. Oh, yes, please. I'm sorry. The resource side, real quick. Oh. So Envisions is the primary. That's the one that everyone is using. That's sort of the stake on the plate, right? That's the main one that everyone's using. Context for Learning, that's the FOSNO materials. That's supplemental, and it dives deeper, where Envisions is not as rich in problem solving, for example. FOSNO is. It's really a wonderful tool in regard to real-world problem solving, and so it's a wonderful supplemental tool. And then, of course, we're using Engage New York modules and pieces depending on the grade level. And we're using Engage New York resources in regard to the assessment pieces as well. In here, just move down a little bit for my recommendations. Okay. So, primary, main recommendation is we need to get the curriculum onto a platform where all the pieces are being able to be seen. So we're going to develop a written curriculum that can be housed on the district curriculum platform, Rubicon. That's not currently in place at the elementary level. It will allow all stakeholders to have access to the various pieces. So the assessment tools that are developed at Giffen can be seen and utilized at New Scotland and that type of thing. modifications to the pre, post, and checkpoint assessments at each grade level to address the concerns of length and structural errors. That's already taking place and will be in place in 3 weeks when students come back and have to take their first pre-assessment. We're going to address the Envision pacing and topics needed, and we're aligning them. Achieve the Core did a crosswalk guidance document where they looked at the Envision resource tool and looked at where next gen standards and other things, so we'll be able to utilize that Achieve the Core to do alignment for the next gen standards with our current primary resource. We're going to continue with professional development, and again, you're aware of the embedded PD, the large-scale embedded PD that's going to be occurring, 2.5 hours a month for every classroom teacher, and it will alternate months between ELA and math. And so we have a detailed outline. We are going to use that embedded to do the training for the FOSNO, so that those teachers who did not have FOSNO training will have more of an opportunity there. We will be finding, developing, and capturing additional resources to address the needs for the students with disabilities and the English language learners. And we are currently reviewing online resource tools to utilize at the elementary level. So right now you're using Lexia and iRead for ELA, but there is no common math online platform. Compass Learning is being used in some sites, but we're looking at different ones, and one of the ones we're looking at is Discovery Box. And so we're looking at different pieces, and we're looking at ways to utilize them. Okay, there we go.
Okay, on to the middle level mathematics program. I'll be presenting 5 findings that are then aligned to 5 recommendations. What we noticed first as we looked at our maps is that all of our maps are currently aligned to the Common Core standards. One area of growth that we saw was that we didn't have priority and supporting standards identified for all of those units to help teachers identify where they should be spending the majority of their instructional time. Another finding we saw was with regards to our assessments. We have, through the middle school math coach, worked very hard this year to create common assessments that are being utilized in all classrooms across our middle level buildings. They have not made their way onto the Rubicon platform yet, so that was an easy finding that we can fix. We also have noticed that strategies for SPED students and ELL students, specific strategies tied to a unit are not there right now. So we've got some more generic strategies that might be used, say scaffolding or graphic organizers, but a new teacher coming on board right now doesn't have a graphic organizer for Unit 1 to use. Finally, resources. We noticed that we had some outdated resources that have just kind of collected over time on these maps, several different platforms that have been used over the years that needed to be streamlined. As we all know, online links go dead after a while, so we found a fair share of those as well. So I'm also very excited to share with the board that we've adopted a new resource that we will be rolling out this year. We, much like K-5, will be using the Pearson Envision product, and this is going to bring us in alignment actually all the way from K all the way up through algebra. Obviously, that'll be a nice streamlined transition from elementary to middle level and from middle level to the high school program. We've also been providing teachers this summer with some training on how to use those resources. There's been 2 opportunities, one in July, one in August, and I'm also planning one for that November PD day as well. So moving on to some of the recommendations this evening. We, as I said already, priority and supporting standards, we'd like to add those for each of our units, and some of this work has actually already begun. We've had committees of teachers working this summer to address some of these, especially the low-hanging fruit, like adding the assessments to the exam that I discussed. So some of them that are going to take a little bit longer to build up are those specific strategies that are aligned to each unit for our SPED ELL population, as well as some differentiated activities. A lot of these have been created through our data cycles with our coach, but up until now, we've had some trouble with that being captured on Rubicon. So one of my big charges this year is to kind of champion the use of Rubicon and have my coach and some of my building curriculum team leaders really be that champion in our buildings, because there is good work being done in terms of curriculum writing, but it's just not being captured on the platform. Also, as I said, now that we've adopted this new Pearson Envision product, we want to make sure that our maps are aligned to that and remove those dead links that I had talked about. For the high school now, moving on, you're actually going to find very similar findings at this level, so I will be a little bit more streamlined with it here. Similar to what I discussed with middle level, all of our courses are aligned. We're missing some of that priority and supporting focus that we'd like to have. One thing that is a little bit easier at the middle level is we really only have 4 courses to talk about at the middle level. When we go to the high school, there is a plethora of courses to talk about, so the challenge of making sure that all of those maps are captured and updated frequently becomes rather difficult. So some of our courses that reach a smaller group of students that actually have more defined curriculum anyway from outside providers like AP or IB, those haven't been updated as frequently as courses that we develop more closely in-house, like our algebra, geometry, and algebra 2 courses. Again, assessments need to be uploaded, and we also need to continue to work to give unit-specific resources. One exciting adoption from this year as well at the high school level was eDoctrina. I'm sure the board saw that come through, but it rolled out on a small scale last year. We're going to be rolling it out wider this year, and for anyone who might not be familiar with it, this is a student performance monitoring, so both formative and summative assessments can be used or created in this platform and tied to standards so that we can progress monitor students over time. We can see if those strategies that we're putting in place are effective or not, and then adjust our curriculum as need be. Moving on to some recommendations, similar to as I said at middle level, we will prioritize and realign our standards. We're going to make sure that we have up-to-date maps for all of our courses at the high school level, capturing those common assessments, and again, ensuring that we have some unit-specific strategies for our special populations and differentiated activities as well. So at this time, if the board has any comments or questions,
Board colleagues,
we're ready.
does anyone have any comments or questions for the team? Ms. Roach?
I just wanted to thank you both for that presentation. It was very data-driven and logical, as I would expect of mathematicians. So it's really, really a treat to read. I just had one quick question about the structural errors on the elementary assessments. What do you mean by that?
So last year, at about this time, a direction was given to create sort of internal documents, and those documents had errors that there was, for example, on the correcting guide, it would say the answer is 13, and the answer was maybe 12. And so there were some of those. There was also reversals of numbers, clerical errors, things of those sorts. They were remedied easily, but they created issue, when it was being implemented during the school year. All of those documents have been modified and fixed and ready to go and streamlined, because the biggest issue was the size of the document. We were asking 20 questions. What we did this year is we have a fall pre and fall post. We have a spring pre and a spring post, so that what was happening was the whole second half of the test was useless to the teacher for planning, because it was essentially there were no answers when they gave the test back in September. And so now It will be a much cleaner document and guide planning and have a much clearer picture for the teachers with regard to what their students know.
And I take it we'll take less time for the assessments to be given to students as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. We've removed certain checkpoints, we've shortened them. It's about ensuring you have a pulse check on what the children know and what you need to plan so you can keep moving them forward. It's not about having them plow through tests.
Thank you.
Who would like to be next? Anyone here? Ms. Wilson? Yes? No? No? Ms. Smith?
Thank you. This was excellent. I had occasion to sit through a presentation to the regents on the rollout of these next generation standards and was quite excited. Wasn't sure if that was so much about the standards, but rather the teacher who was up in front. But my question has to do with sort of, I think, this engagement and differentiated activities as well as strategies for particular groups. My personal experience has been that, and this, again, this is not to speak for every child that's a person of color, but my experience has been my daughter's friends in that cohort, where they were all since middle school trying to figure out how to avoid taking any higher level math. They just wanted to get through it. And I'm just trying to figure out how pervasive a problem that is, because what we want is for kids to be excited, engaged, and to see how this applies to them. In the real world, and that's what it seems that these standards will do. I don't know that, again, that it's so much about the standards as much as how we are delivering and that instruction, but I do get concerned about particular groups of students. And again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I see this around some students of color. Certainly around some students with disabilities and those who are also struggling to, develop their English proficiency, although sometimes I've seen that group do much better in math. So can you help me out here with what we might, how is this going to differ? Am I correct that we have more engaging strategies, we'll have more consistency, we'll have better resources where math will be something that students will eventually see as this is part of life and living, and this applies to everything that I do. So
From a K-5 lens, it's about STEM. It's about having them see math as part of a larger piece, that math is not done in isolation over here, but it's needed to be able to build that bridge or to create that playground that functions or whatever real-world problem. So the wonderful pieces about the FOSNO at the K-5 is they have application projects that are inside of them. We're also implementing at the K-5 level 2 STEM units, one in 2nd grade and one in 3rd grade, and they have components of science, math, engineering, and design that we've never had before, and that this year every 2nd grade student, every 3rd grade student will be looking at a STEM unit. It will hopefully, because I see K-5 as planting the seeds and sparking the excitement for STEM and those pieces of STEM, the science, the math, the tech, and the engineering. And then when they get to the middle school, high school, that spark is there, that excitement to do that is there, and they then gravitate to take those classes.
I think at the middle level too, just one thing that we're hoping to continue to grow this year is that flying classroom piece, where it's really kind of landed more in the science side right now, but it does invite cross-curricular activities, and it's engaging activities where really the build phase of that is the part where we're just seeing students light up and find some value. The other thing that we're trying to do is the goal would be to have one of these engaging activities per unit that we're taking the students again through some real world modeling problem that makes the math more applicable to them and isn't just another worksheet. Does that satisfy? Great.
Ms. Mann?
Thank you for your presentation. You may have mentioned it, but I'm not sure that I heard it. When we were talking about K through 5, getting the curriculum on a platform so that plans can be shared from one school to the next. What is the time frame on that?
Well, that's a very good question. The thing with Rubicon right now at the secondary level, it's done by teachers, right? There is a team of teachers or a couple of teachers who enter the data in and overseen by the supervisor and the math coach and that kind of thing. It's a broader spectrum with all 12 buildings. I can't have all second grade teachers entering things into the Rubicon platform. So my hope is that we would have all resources and assessments onto that Rubicon as we progress, like we just keep entering things in. The beautiful part this year is with this embedded PD that we're going to be having and these classroom teachers in front of us, I'm going to have direct access to every second grade, every third grade, every K-5 teacher. I will have direct access so can communicate, and even if the platform isn't fully up and ready for them to access, I can bring those strategies forward with every time they get together. I will see every one of them, and it won't just be hit or miss, depending on whether their math coach shared it, whether there was a PD at their building. The hope for Rubicon would be by the end of to take this entire school year, because honestly, I'm not sure who else is entering into Rubicon for elementary but me. So, I mean, there would certainly have to be teachers and their resources would come, but the clerical pieces of entering that into that platform, I'm not sure who else would do that work at this juncture. And coaches, there's 6 coaches, and they of course would help as well, but it would take time, you know, with all K-5 that way, because we're starting from scratch.
Okay, thank you.
I think just one piece to add is that, you know, curriculum writing never ends. It really is an ongoing process that if we can build a framework this year and then just continue to refine it in future years, you know, just continue to move that forward. Yep, of course.
For those who've been on the board for a while, you're aware we've been engaged in curriculum writing for every year, and you see the names that come through. At the secondary level, there's a really solid baseline collected written curriculum, and we have a platform for the teachers to come together and look at it because they're smaller departments. They're, you know, 15 people or 20 people or whatever it might be, so it's much more manageable. I'm really delighted that Sarah's going to take this project on, and we will see through the course of the year how it works. The elementary teachers tend to be a little bit more, I don't want to be give it a broad sweep, but about getting on to Rubicon, it's a less natural thing, I think, than for our secondary folks.
Questions? Other questions? I'll go ahead.
Okay. So this assessment of overall math, just like we did with the music department, you know, is something very valuable. And what you don't know, but now we know. Talk to me a little bit about middle school and the red that I see, especially the high expectations where it's 100% underdeveloped, but middle school seemed to blare out, and I was wondering if you saw that consistency through the middle schools and what's going on there.
So what I can say is, in some ways that graphical display might be a little bit misleading for that column. Only 2 standards, if memory serves, encompass that subcategory of the rubric. And really what those speak to are those areas of specific strategies for those subgroups that I talked about. And as I said, that is really an underdeveloped area of our maps. We aren't providing teachers right now across buildings with specific strategies for SPED, E&L, and differentiated activities. Not to say that none of our classrooms are using those, but right now it's onto the teachers themselves to develop those, and it's working more in a siloed scenario. And that's when I was speaking of championing Rubicon and encouraging teachers to share those resources. If Sarah's in one building and using something great and can put that on the platform where now we can have all students in all buildings accessing that great resource, that's the direction we're hoping to move in.
Ms. Bechtel, you kind of led into the question I was going to ask, which is how much do the teachers who are not writing the curriculum but that are receiving, that are using Rubicon to access a curriculum, how much are they actually doing that, and how do we know that they're actually doing that? Because I know many people, they're in their own classroom, they're doing it their way, they want to do it their way, they might not be super inclined to look at this outside perspective on how to do it.
In the 4 cores, the secondary folks from 7 through 12, 6th grade, depending, they use those maps. They really are. They're very well used. I can in Rubicon, and I do periodically go and look at the hits. I can look how often a particular teacher is in the Rubicon system. I can look for a school. I can look for and I can see how many times they're in it, how many times they're entering something. The entering happens in a more structured way. We don't really want folks going in all year long and throwing things in. And an aspect of Rubicon that we have is something called a diary map, and at the high school they've been flirting more with that, where there's a district curriculum. I teach English, say English 11, and there's a district English 11 curriculum. It's established, it's there. I take that curriculum, I put it in the Karen Beckdahl diary map, and now I can put in anything I want in that. It's for me only. And then at the end of the year or a mid-year point, when everybody comes together again to look at the curriculum, I have caught that, what I did in November, even though now it might be May that we're looking into it. That's slowly gaining some traction at the high school level. That is the design for this. And again, we're on a continuum, and the high school's kind of in the lead. The middle school is just right behind them. And then for elementary, we've only really dipped our toe in the water a little bit with social studies a couple of years ago, getting some units on there. I'm not sure, because they don't touch the curriculum in the same way. However, let me say that this is an interesting conversation we had at Arbor Hill last week with Roz Gaines and Michelle Bridgewater, Cecily, and Sarah, and myself. And we were talking about the DTSDE reviews and the work around 10 and 3, and the way that the state comes in, and they're like, okay, so you're saying the district is giving you your curriculum, but where is your role in it? And this is something that I've been talking about a long time, and that we slowly have been really getting successful at this at the secondary level, not so much with the elementary. So the elementary teachers say, yep, you have this fabulous scope and sequence, these comprehensive programs, but what are you doing to this program to own it? How are you owning this program? How are you modifying it? And that's all Tenet 3 work. And Cecily and I have discussed, and we believe that, we may have some buildings that are ready to maybe take the lead with Sarah. So maybe Sarah will do some things that will be a little more building specific, because we have groups of teachers that are ready. We have to be attentive to the readiness of the folks, and then spread it out and grow it that way over time. And then we have to make some decisions about the teachers at the elementary level, making it sort of a demand that they get into Rubicon. At the secondary level, folks know your curriculum's on Rubicon, that's where you gotta go get it. So, yes, and Frank would like to add.
Also at the secondary level, I will be providing, and Jen Houlihan on the humanities side will be providing a one-page placemat to all of our principals that will give them the priority and supporting standards for each unit to empower principals and ourselves to in our walkthrough model, so that we can go in and monitor and provide feedback to teachers who may be deviating from our common curriculum that's established on Rubicon. So some of that will occur through our walkthrough protocol.
And the same thing is occurring at the elementary level. Once the principals are all coming to the embedded PD, one section of the embedded PD, and then meeting with Cecily afterwards. And so they will then be given guidance documents to see the implementation of the lessons that were developed with the teachers. And we'll have and both Lynn and I have been charged to do the same type of at a glance overview for the principals.
Other questions? Ms. Wilson?
I also had a question similarly around the red in the area of the high expectations, but you more or less outlined where the breakdown may have occurred and what remedies will be applied. So my other sort of insight was I did see in the narrative more or less a strength was the identification that there were disparities in the expectations and planning for all students. And back to Vicky's point about attitudes, and I think it comes back to this long-standing belief that it becomes a cultural attitude that's transmitted in our culture about scores in math, and more so the emphasis in what I feel that you're sort of transitioning to is more of emphasis on skills. So, you know, seeing patterns, seeing trends, being able to apply your knowledge, and it goes back to where we were talking about even in the tax warrant, increasing our competitiveness as a district, which is going to contribute to our competitiveness overall too.
Yes, and I think having students engage in mathematical discourse, conversations about real world, and also just what it means to think mathematically.
Anyone else? Questions or further comments on the view? Ms. Roach?
I kind of had what's really a tangential question / comment, and it's not meant to in any way, question why it wasn't included in the report. It's just for thought. But I wondered if we have or are giving thought to any sort of district-wide math enrichment or extracurriculars, because it seems like I know at the elementary school level as a parent, I used to hear a lot about first in math, and as a board member, I used to hear about competitions in that, and like schools competing against other schools. And I know that at the middle school level, as board members, sometimes we get questions about people who would like their child to be more accelerated, put in higher level courses when it may not be developmentally appropriate. So I'm wondering to what extent, I don't want to further stratify the achievement between students, but if there's a way that we can district-wide create some sort of level of competitiveness, or just if you have any thoughts about that, whether I don't even know if that's something you see as your role to provide that sort of enrichment as a district-wide thing, but I wonder if it could be useful for some students or create more buzz around math.
Again, looking at it from the K-5 lens inside of the STEM process, because we're looking at certain elementary buildings starting after school STEM programs, clubs. Right now this week, Giffen has this unbelievable STEM week-long camp happening there that has coding and other pieces. Getting those pieces together, my hope is we also will look very much at pushing more active participation in the Joseph Henry Science Fair at all buildings at a rigorous level, a little bit higher than, baking soda and vinegar kind of things, and moving them to a level where real math inquiry, because it is happening. There are some unbelievable science projects. I came on board in January, and I made it a point to go to all the building science fairs to see what was going on and to talk to the students. And there was some wonderful things. Delaware had an open to all grade levels, where that isn't the case in some buildings. So to push that idea that math is embedded inside that STEM science piece, you'll see Frank's a math guy and I'm a science person. So we both have our drive. And I think that in what you're talking about competition can occur inside of STEM activities, having STEM long kind of competitions, those Lego kind of competitions, those other pieces that can potentially push. But focus, STEM learning experiences have 4 components. Not all of them focus on math. Flying Classroom, for example, is heavy with engineering and design, and not so heavy with math and science. They each have a piece.
Right, I'm only asking about this because this is the mathematics presentation, that's all.
Okay.
Not to silo you.
I'm just waiting over here to
Not to silo you, I know. Thanks.
Did you want to speak to that?
I think at this point, I agree with you that it is a whole. I have not, at this time, really explored much of that, but I do agree with you that, especially at the middle level, we don't have a consistent cross-building opportunity for our students. It is happening in pockets, but I will take that back as something to work on moving forward.
So I just wanted to put it out there as an idea because it's something we hear about frequently as board members. So thanks.
Anyone else? Ms. Mann?
This is not a fully formed comment, but very exciting to hear about, and I think that anyway that.
Ms. Alexander-Mann, can you speak more directly into the mic?
Can you hear me now? All right. I do think that this is very exciting, and anything that we can do as a district to celebrate this, I mean, the idea of every second grader having an experience with STEM, that's exciting, and that's also about equity. That is really fantastic. So, I appreciate all the efforts here. I really do.
Ms. Smith?
And again, I just want to reiterate, also trying to make sure that we are building self-confidence. I mean, there are going to be tons of students, I believe, who are going to accelerate, and they're going to hit the road and become great scientists and mathematicians. And then you have other camps, and I saw too many kids in a camp where, and I think teachers also allowed it, where, for instance, just connected to the science fairs, like it was still okay to be doing like crystals, developing crystals, growing crystals in middle school science fairs. I didn't think that was okay, but you see, the teacher said that was okay, so it was very difficult, hustle with my daughter, trying to get her to challenge yourself, Missy. You can do something much more interesting. Sorry, so I'm picking on her, but that was also among her friends, having them come to my house as 8th graders, developing crystals. I just was knocking my head up against the wall. So I want to build their confidence and challenge them to apply and see what they can do and achieve in the world. So anyway, sorry.
I have one last very specific question, which has to do with the use of technology in the classroom, especially at the elementary level. Roughly what percentage of time do you anticipate that our elementary kids are using the computer to learn math, as opposed to either manipulatives or working in the real world, let's say, with a teacher or with manipulative?
Envision has aspects that children can get online and do some work. Certain buildings have Compass Learning, where they have set amounts of time that the children go to the computer lab 30 minutes a week and do specifically math. There is no set time for online, and honestly, on a K2 level, I want them using manipulatives. I want them hands-on using manipulatives. Yes, I want a comprehensive platform, so when there is RTI groups, teachers taking a small group here, there is some platform time, there is some time to do that. But the hands-on piece of math, the writing, some of what we were seeing is, if you go on and there's a computerized program for math, and it's like trying to figure out computation problems, and it's like we're just clicking the letter C, versus if they're working and they have to write it and they're working with a partner. In kindergarten, for example, we're going to implement something called counting collections. Once a week, we did it in summer school, and we're rolling it out. We've been doing it over the last couple of years, but not systematically. Every kindergarten teacher will be using counting collections. It is a system that develops number sense. It is hands-on, it's collaborative, it's 21st century, it's manipulatives. Essentially, they count baggies of items, but they develop skill sets, and every child has an entry point. Every child has an entry point. So to your point, to your question, wave it back over there, not a lot, and not a set amount of time, and it is site-specific. Some buildings have specific, some buildings have no expectation that during math time they'll be online.
That's good to hear. You may or may not know that my background is in Montessori, so we're used to counting things and using manipulatives. But I have heard that I've heard that concern from parents, that they're finding a lot of reports in younger children of screen-based learning, and it's anecdotal and hopefully just bad anecdotes. Anyone else? So then thank you again for the excellent work. We appreciate it. We look forward to seeing more green in the charts next time we see them.
Thank you.
So that's going to bring us to board committee reports. Do we have any board committee reports? Ms. Smith looks excited to speak about the facilities committee.
Excited? No, I'm kidding. The Facilities Committee has just recently met this week, Monday. We had quite a full agenda, and there's a lot going on in this district. First of all, we spoke about the high school construction update. I think Ms. Adams, and you've heard, and you're also getting some reports via the SNN, but we were talking about some of the things that have affected our ability to move on schedule with the construction. I think we're managing it, but the heat and the rain hasn't helped. And then also we've discovered some things that were unknown that we were not expecting to learn that have impacted the project, but we are moving ahead. And I can certainly give the board a more detailed report, but things are looking good there. Let's see. You are getting updates, so I'm not going to go into those things. You will be down the road seeing some more change orders coming your way for consideration as we find out certain things that we have to address. Let's see. We spoke about the middle school configuration. We have appreciated, I think, the committee as well as staff, the questions coming in through the communications tool. And these are all going to, the responses are all coming to you via that means to help support the board making an informed decision to the, around the middle school options. And you will be sort of narrowing down the possibilities, I think, at our August 30th meeting. So we are, as staff, are working very hard to make sure that your questions are answered and responded to. We have also rolled out a timeline that would help get us to presenting this middle school option, whichever we choose, to a referendum. But we want to do a couple of things, obviously, before then, including holding some community forums. And I think you've already seen through SNN some of the scheduled forums that will be held to give the community some additional opportunities for input. And those are in the SNN. I do have them, let's see. But Ms. Adams, I think you spoke about those.
Mr. Lesko has them memorized. Would you care to approach the bike?
Would you
and
mind
tell
doing
us when
that?
would be?
Oh, I have it on my computer, I'm sorry.
The dates I definitely remember. The dates are October 3rd, October 16th, October 22nd, and October 24th. October 3rd is at North Albany Academy. I believe October 16th is at Hackett. October 22nd is at Arbor Hill, and October 24th, the final one, is going to be at Pine Hills Elementary School. And they're all from 6:30 to 8 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Lesko.
Thank you. Let's see. One other thing that we spoke about, and Mr. Lesko, you don't have to move, or you can, it's okay. I think Ms. Adams actually spoke about this already, and that's the event on August 29th, the Charettes with Mission Accomplished and the district, and we really, really want to have a great turnout. So I don't know if you care to make a comment about, again, the work that we hope to accomplish there.
Sure. It'll be similar to the meeting that we had at a village at the end of June. We'll provide an update for the community members who attend about the status of the Albany High School project of Phase 1, including some campus updates for students and families as we begin the new school year. And then we'll also focus on the community outreach activities that we've been engaged in primarily through Mission Accomplished Transition Services. We have started to make some progress in terms of getting people to work and getting people engaged, and we'll have an MWBE contractor who's working on the project speak as part of the program, Larry Toon, and two individuals. One who is through our job fair on July 12th was a direct hire on the Albany High project, and there have been 3 other individuals from that job fair who are going into apprenticeship programs. One of those individuals also will present, 2 of those gentlemen, the one who's working on the job and the one who's going into the Painters Union, will speak about their experience in that regard. And I'm familiar with the feedback from the one man who's working on the project, and he was, for a year and a half, he's been trying to find work, and one of the comments he made to either James or Carmen was that no one in the city was doing this kind of an outreach, and he was very grateful for what we did to create this opportunity for him to find a very good job on the Albany High project. So that's an early success story for us in this community engagement.
That's fantastic, and we certainly want to have more of those, many, many more.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you so much on that. One final thing that we spent time talking about was the fact that we, as a district, are required, every district is, required every 5th year to complete a building condition survey, and that's related to our 5-year facilities plan, is what we call it. And so to put together that next plan, we go and collect input from staff, from vendors and other professionals in our sites, board members, community members, and so we will begin soon to put out and distribute a survey that would allow the community and staff and board and others to provide input into the conditions of our buildings. And I think this is a plan that's sort of like high level, so I'm not just, certainly we are tending to various, maintenance things, cleanliness and those things of the building, but I'm really talking things that require capital, improvements, so we will be getting out a survey for all to look at and complete, and that will help put together this 5-year facilities plan, which Mr. Hogan pretty much handles. Is there anything I'm missing on that plan? Okay, great, thank you. And please keep looking at information that comes out on the web through the SNN or through newsletters, and we'll be in touch with you. So, board, thank you for your patience. I know it's a long report. We have a lot of things that we're working on and have accomplished, and want to thank the staff very much. I can't tell you how much they've been doing, particularly around the high school, to have contingency plans for this and that, and dealing with weather and other things that come up. So just a kudos to all at the high school particularly, and our facilities staff. Thank you.
Any other board committee reports? Policy committee did meet a couple days ago. You have seen the results of that meeting, as we talked about 4 policies tonight, which was pretty, I think might be a record for us for one night. Is there any other items of other business tonight? Then I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Ms. Smith, seconded by Ms. Wilson. All in favor? We are adjourned.